And for this very second episode of the show, we have 5 really interesting films that are so different from each other that they'll definitely be ones that we're all excited to talk about. Now, for this second episode, we're going to be discussing the films The Set, The Naked Bunyip, Stork, Walkabout, and Night of Fear. So we'll start with our very first film, which of course is the 1970 drama The Set, which was directed by Frank Britton and written by Diane Britton and Roger Ward, which of course is based on the latter's novel of the same name. And the film stars Sean McEwan, Rob Molina, and Hazel Phillips. And Marcey, what is the plot summary of this film?
The plot synopsis, which is from IMDb, Paul Lawrence is a working-class man who dates Cara, sells shirts at a Sydney department store, and dreams of attending art school.
Now, Marcey, we all recently watched this film for the first time, but tell us your thoughts on The Set and what makes this kind of stand out compared to other, not just Ozploitation films, but also other Australian films that were made at the time, because there's definitely a lot of great history behind this film.
Yeah, well, back in the day, like when this was getting filmed and coming out, there was a lot of crazy talk about this, sex film. It's got homosexuality in it. It was all very controversial, yada, yada, yada. There were lines around the block to see this in, like, the drive-ins and everything. It was quite popular, but then I think this film just almost became lost for so long and only really recently resurfaced from a release from Bounty Films, and we'll be talking a bit later to Leslie Morris, who helped bring this film back out. And having watched it for the first time just a few days before recording this podcast, I was really, really impressed with the film. It handles, like, the subject of sex and sexuality in a way that for 1970 feels very progressive, because these things for most of the film are just treated as a matter of fact, not some big, like, ooh, that's not right, or ooh, how controversial. It kind of tackles it as, like, that's how people were. Like, no one really cared if somebody was gay or lesbian or whatever they were into. And I really found that fascinating within this film. And I actually really like how it's directed and shot. It's very, very interesting, and the transfer of this film just looks really, really good. It's very clear to look at. So I quite enjoyed that. I thought the performances were mostly very good in this as well. And the main character of Paul, who he's with a girl called Cara. She is going away to pursue, her dreams, and he's stuck kind of back, a bit heartbroken that she's not there. And he sort of, we're trying to do something with his art. He gets put in touch with this woman and they start working together. And then she introduces him to all sorts of different people in, like, the art scene. And he starts to work on a set, like a set for theatre. And in doing all this, he sort of meets another man called, what's the character's name?
Tony.
Tony, that's right. He meets Tony, a very Marlon Brando from the 50s kind of looking man, and they are working together, but then they start to develop feelings and have a sexual relationship together. And there's a lot of complications with all of that, and there's side stories involving Paul's aunt, who has a tryst with Tony, and also Paul's boss. So there's a lot going on, and some scenes kind of go back and forth very weirdly. But overall, I think it was a very interesting and very progressive film for its time. Yeah, I don't know if if Bede or B want to chime in about The Set.
I'll let B go first. B, what did you think of the set?
Oh, it's a very fascinating film, just due to how openly it portrays it. It's just like what Marcey said. It's not made to be sensationalistic, and it's
No.
not. Yeah, it's about sexuality, and with sexuality comes the topic of objectification. But it's sort of like it goes beyond saying, "Oh, look at this sort of taboo thing you're watching." Like these are human beings who are finding each other and having this relationship. And relationships can be beautiful. They can be messy. They can be problematic. They can be incredible. They can be so many things. And given the time period when the set was made, if I'm not mistaken, it was during what was it? Second wave feminism or something, and with that came this sense of open sexuality and sort of like investigating, what it is to have this aspect in your life and exploring it in such a way. And what's also very fascinating in this case, that it's sort of like centers around like a homosexual man, and it, once again, it doesn't portray this person as a caricature or something that's offensive. This is a guy. This is just a guy, and he's discovering more about himself and sort of like seeing the sort of person he is. It's just it's a very sort of beautiful concept, and I find that the film is very sensitive and very particular about how it explores these themes.